welcome. And again, I will reiterate what Vicki said. Thank you, coaches, for stepping up, taking this on. We know this is a huge, huge change in what we've done in the past. So I'm going to go through the field setup, the rules, and the actual missions. And then Cheryl will be kind of interrupting me. Again, put your questions in the Q&A. If they're in the chat, not everyone sees them, but if you can put them in the Q&A when Cheryl answers those, or she will actually be repeating them so everyone can hear them, and I will answer them live. So most of the questions I think Cheryl will repeat, and I will answer the question as best we can. So for the first part, the field setup, the mat, as you know, it does not cover the entire field, but your mat should be all the way pulled to the south side. It should be flush, and this year it should be flush to the east, so it should be pushed all the way into that far right corner. Norma, if you can flip one slide for me, please. There is actually a compass rose on the mat. We had a lot of fun trying to find it because traditionally there is always one. It is by the basketball court. It's kind of in the chalk. So north is pointing up near the basketball, near the boccia. South is down here near home and the launch area, and then west and east. So you're going to be on the east end, flush there, and then flush against this mat as well. When you do that, excuse me, that should give you about 13.5 inches here in home, and then you've got the width, width of the home area there as well. This year you are actually allowed, optionally if you feel like you need it, to put a little bit of black tape along this edge here. You want to make sure you're only covering the black tape, and you can put it on both the west side and the east side of the mat, and that's just to kind of hold that mat from down as you're moving in and out of there. Okay. All right. And then in hopes that potentially we get to a situation where we can have in-face events and we can have teams competing against each other, the tables will be back to back like you see in the picture here. So do not, make sure if your kids are practicing that they don't get used to hanging out and standing in between where that second table would be. We don't want them practicing all season and then all of a sudden there's a table there and they're not used to that. So keep in mind that there will be, if we get to have hybrid events or in-person events, that there will be another table butted up against this table. All right, so mission model placement and dual lock, page 5 and 6, and then Vicki kind of mentioned that you should have your robot game guidebook. If you have that open, you can kind of follow, rule book, sorry, you can follow along with me. So page 5, 6 of the robot game rule book has the exact placement where you put each mission model. And you want to make sure you're putting them in the right place and putting them in the right direction. There are cues on the mats to give you a good idea. In the rule book, the basketball mission is mislabeled as mission 4. The basketball is actually mission 5. It's not a big deal. They did release that in the updates. If you got your kits early, your dual lock was defective. It's awful. We are not going to use that. First is mailing you replacement dual lock. If you do not receive that from First, please contact First directly, and they will be able to get that to you. Any new teams that are registering are actually going to get a new kit, a new piece of dual lock in their kits as well. I had the old dual lock on this mat. I was able to peel it off carefully and slowly, and it came up just fine, and then put the new dual lock down. It does make a huge difference to make sure you've got the good dual lock on there. One thing on there is that bag 9, that's the big question. What do we do with bag 9? They are a bunch of very colorful, they look a lot like the green health units, but they're brightly colored. There's blue and red and green, blue and red and yellow and purple. Those are just for fun. It's a freebie. They don't count for anything. Give them to your kids, have fun with them. as well as the replay. Those are kind of coaches' pins. Those are just for fun. They don't go anywhere on the mat, so you don't have to worry about them. When Vicki talked about this a little bit earlier, put all the mission models in their correct place, even if you don't plan to use them. You want to make sure the kids are running the robot with everything that's going to be on the mat, everything that could potentially be in their way, even if you don't plan to use them. Same thing with the things that start in home. All the blocks, all the health units, if you aren't going to do anything with them, you can't take them off and set them aside. They have to remain in that home area, so make sure the kids are practicing with them in the home area so they're used to that being in the way. They can push them off to the side, that's fine, but make sure they're not taking them off the table. All right. We're going to jump to the game rules, and if you're following along in your book, we are actually going to jump to page 18 in your, try to remember the official name of it, Robot Game Rule Books. We're all using the same words. So jump to page 18 if you have it. And then the tips here, read the rules, then read them again. As an experienced coach, I was always amazed how many times I could read a rule and then find something new in it, especially once the kids had kind of maybe focused on that mission a little bit. So make sure you're reading those rules, watch those field instructions, the rules, read carefully, reread them. If you've got one of those kids who loves details, that is a great kid to put in charge of reading the rules and kind of interpreting them and figuring them out. When you're reading the rules, read the actual words that are there. One of the things we say is if it's not written, if it doesn't say you can't, you usually can. And kids are so creative finding kind of cool ways to interpret the rules. Keep up to date on the updates. There are 4 so far, and we will touch on those kind of as we go through the evening. I'll point out where the updates are. The last update was actually back in September, I believe. We have the updates linked on the High Tech Kids website, so please go to that website and we will be checking them. Vicki talked about if there are further updates that come down the road, we will be using those that are printed the Friday before the week that you are doing your robot runs, okay? There is a kind of a way that the rules are actually written. When you're reading the rules, in each of the rules, there's 3 colors. There is purple text that kind of introduces or summarizes. That is kind of what is this mission about. That is not used for scoring. That's just informational. The black text under the purple are the main facts of the rule. So that is something you absolutely want to be paying attention to. And then anytime something is written in that little blue text underneath it, that is an important, they actually say a very important added fact. It may give you a leniency or other helpful facts. So you want to make sure that you are paying attention to those. Yes. Cheryl has a question.
We have a question whether the replacement dual lock, when is that being shipped? Do we know?
This week or next?
This
Like
week?
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, first said they started shipping it this week.
Yeah, but we haven't received ours.
So we're hoping the current dual lock will hold things in place. It's just not going to hold up to kids running into missions or kind of moving missions around. So go ahead and use your dual lock if the kids want to start. That's great, but be ready to replace that with the new dual lock when you get that. And again, if you don't get it in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, please contact first.
Call them.
And we did have a question about whether, how would you know if it's defective?
I actually should have left one on the table. It is your dual lock. Vicki, can you kind of zoom in on this? Your dual lock, you should have to work pretty hard to to pull that off the mat. The defective dual lock, it barely holds the mission models on there. It is very flimsy, and it's actually, you push down and it doesn't stick. This dual lock, the good stuff, you have to push down pretty hard and it'll stick tightly. Okay, all right. And then I'll show you kind of how, when you stick that back down, that nice click is telling you that that is stuck down. Okay. Anything else, Cheryl?
We've got some questions on specific missions, but we'll answer those when we get to those.
Yep, we'll answer the specific questions when we get to each mission. And actually, I'm going to go through the rules first, so we kind of have that overall understanding. All right, so rule number 1 is equipment. What equipment is allowed? Equipment is anything that you're bringing to a match for your mission-related activities. That's your robot, any attachments you have, any accessories, and your innovation project. That's the white pieces from bag 8. That's actually mission number 1. We'll talk about that one. All of your equipment has to be Lego only. It has to be official Lego product in its actual factory-made condition. That means you cannot, if your kids have access to a vise, they cannot crimp those things in a vise. They cannot cut things down. That's from experience. They really wanted to manipulate those. You can't. You can cut officially licensed Lego string, and you can cut officially licensed Lego tubing. And we bought that just so we could use that, say that. You are not allowed to bring additional or duplicate mission models with you to the table. So even if you have them, don't bring them. Leave them off to the table in your basements or at your school. You are allowed 1 sheet of notebook paper that has the programs on there. It's kind of program notes. It just helps the kids when they're running things where that does not have to be made out of Lego. You can have a piece of paper. 1 controller. This is what they're talking about when they're talking about the controller. It's the EV3 brick, okay? If you're using the Spike Prime, it's that yellow Spike Prime hub. If you've got a good old NXT, you know that's a brick with the orange block. So this is your controller. It's not a game controller. This is your controller, okay? You can have a maximum of 4 motors in any one match. And no, you can go back to the slide. It's a maximum of 4 motors at any one match. So I was actually asked this today. If you have attachments that have motors, that's cool. But you can't have 2 driving motors and 3 attachments each with a motor. You can have a total of 4 motors in any one match. Any extra motors have to be left back in the pits or in a different table, not even in the competition area. Sensors, they have to be, they're very specific, and there's a picture in the rules. They have to be either the specific Lego EV3, NXT, RCX if you still have those, or the Spike Prime. They can be any combination of those, even though although the Spike Prime don't interact with the EV3. Your sensors, you do have to be a little bit careful here. You can use the touch or the force, the color, the distance, or the ultrasonic are allowed any mix. You can actually have any number. One thing to keep in mind is that the infrared sensor for the EV3, that's the one that comes in the retail kit. It looks a little bit different. The ultrasonic has the circle eyes, I call them. The infrared actually allows you to use a little remote control, and that is not allowed. So you want to make sure you're using just the sensors that are allowed. Okay. Number 2, software. This is new this year. They allowed it a little bit last year, and then they kind of backed away from the Spike Prime. Pretty much any software that allows that robot to move autonomously, which means on its own, is allowed. You can use the Python, the Scratch, the Spike Prime, the EV3G Lab, which is kind of the old software. You can use the new EV3 Classroom. If they're all looking at me like, what? If you have questions, if you're not sure, shoot me an email, Jeannie at High Tech Kids, and I can kind of help you figure that out. The robot, the programs have to be downloaded to the controller, that brick or hub. They cannot be run from a laptop or from a tablet. Remote control is not allowed in the competition area. We're asking you to turn Bluetooth off so that you can't be driving. Again, your remote, we can't really control that, but we are asking that you use gracious professionalism and you're not using remote off to the side. You must run the program from the controller. So you actually have to push go on that robot controller. You cannot push go from your laptop or from your iPad or from your tablet. So make sure the kids, as we get closer, that they are downloading those and they're practicing running it from the robot, not from their laptop. Excuse me. Number 3, robot. Your controller and any equipment currently combined with the controller by hand and not intended to separate unless by hand. This is the robot. Vicki, this is the robot. Okay, that's kind of a weird way of saying it. Your robot could also have attachments to it. I'll show another robot that has some more attachments in a little bit, but this is the robot. Okay. If you have a removable forklift, that counts as part of the robot, but only when it's attached. A weight that the robot is carrying is cargo. So this got a little bit confusing. We've had a few questions on this because the mission models specifically say the robot does things. The robot, so what they kind of said to us, they've clarified it, and I'm hoping there's going to be an update that's going to help clarify it as well. And what they said basically is if the work is done by the robot, so the robot takes a weight or something and throws it out there to knock something down, the robot has done the work. The robot has caused that mission to happen. So it's like if you screwed something in with a screwdriver, the screwdriver didn't do the work, you did the work. So the robot is doing the work, even though maybe it's a tool or an actuator that is doing it. So that's a robot. The robot is still what we think of as a robot. All right, and then here are some more rules. I'm not going to go into every single rule in super duper detail, although after I wrote this slide, I realized I did want to talk about mission 4 or rule number 4, mission models in more detail. Mission models are things that are already on the field when you get there for the match. You cannot take mission models apart, even temporarily. So you cannot unhook a loop in order to put something in there. Okay, it has to stay in its place. Okay, if you combine a model to anything, including the robot, the combination needs to be loose or simple enough that if you asked, you could free the model in perfect original condition immediately. So this is a change from the past. It used to be that you could not connect mission models to things. Honestly, I can't see the benefit of doing it this year, but if you do connect it, maybe to my robot, I've got something here. I want to stick this on here. Stick it on there. I can do that as long as I can quickly remove it and keep it in its original shape. Okay. All parts of the models count as the model. Frames, bases, loops. That's all part of your mission model. Okay. Rule number 5, precision tokens. Those are the red discs that are in the far corner. Driving me crazy. So those are the 6 discs that start in the corner. Your remote, we're going to kind of be doing those on your honor, removing those if you incur penalties. We are asking, based on one of the updates, they are asking that you keep those in that corner. You set them in the corner so that you're used to them being there, so you don't think you have extra space. So practice with those 6 precision tokens in the corner. Okay. Rule number 6 defines what a mission is. A mission is the tasks that the robot is going out and doing on the table. These are all labeled as mission 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, up to 14. They're just the tasks that are out there. A match is when 2 teams, pre-COVID, when they run their robots against each other. Your matches will be just your team running for their 2.5 minutes. They are going to be 2.5 minutes. You will have to supply a timer. Vicki already talked about that, and we actually got a great suggestion. And I think maybe we will look up that timer suggestion and share that out on our website as well, because that sounded like a a neat one, because you are going to need to show the referees your timer. And we, again, will be putting out information on how best to kind of show your field. Rule number 8, technicians. That is team members who are handling the robot during the match. There can only be 2 technicians at the table at a time. You can switch kids in and out. The other team members will stand back. Because of the situation we know we're in, that there may only be 1 kid who is available to run that robot. It may be in a basement or something. We're trying to figure out what the options are for a surrogate if they need someone. Maybe it can be a sibling who can step in. We're actually going to ask first for an official ruling on whether or not that coach can be certainly not driving that robot, but can they be the assistant? We don't know the answer to that. As soon as we know that, we will let you know. But basically, the 2 technicians are the kids on the teams that are running those. Any questions on those, Cheryl? Okay, super.
Feel free to have loud music in the background.
Yes, have fun with it. One of the things, I've watched some remote runs, and it's kind of fun seeing kids in their bare feet in the basement. But add personality. If the whole team isn't there, what are ways that you can represent the rest of the team there? Oh, Cheryl's got a...
So we have a question. If there is only 1 kid showing the robot run, then how will we score in core values?
Well, that's not.
Well, core values are, in general, they are observed, certainly during the robot runs. How is that kid interacting with the referee? Just because only 1 kid is running doesn't mean that the other kids aren't also on the Discord call as well and sharing what they've learned, and cheering them on. So, I may be here running the robot, but Vicki may be on Discord in another window, sharing or talking or sharing and interacting with that referee. Remember, the refs want to have fun too, and that's really why one of the reasons we implemented the live robot rounds were because our referees said they didn't want to watch recorded things. They wanted to be able to interact and chat with the kids and see what was going on and see what they had learned. So I think they're not going to be necessarily scored, but it will be discussed probably with the judges. All right. Anything else? Oh.
May a third person, an adult, be present at the table acting in a similar manner to a referee, removing the precision tokens, reminding the kids to let the robot get back to base before touching it, etc.?
That's a tough one. I don't know the answer to that. The ref will be watching, and the ref will be able to talk to the kids with those live rounds. The precision tokens, maybe the coach could take that off. I think we'll figure that out.
That's part of our learning journey.
And that may be something that we learn as we do that first practice round and technology check. We may realize that our refs are like, I do want the coach to do that, or I don't want the coach to do that. That may be something that we learn during those practice rounds and that technology check. That may be something that we learn in early November when we do those first rounds. And I think that that'll be a great opportunity for us to learn and figure it out.
Maybe we'll get a whole bunch of new referees next year.
Yes, maybe. All right. Any other ones?
Nope.
Okay, super. All right. So I'm going to talk about number 9, which is equipment inspection. So after each match, you're going to come up to the table, and we do actually want to see this process during the robot runs and during that practice round. You're going to, if you've got your robot in equipment in a container, you want to make sure that you're showing the ref that everything can either fit in one of 2 inspection areas. So this is the small inspection area. There is there's an imaginary line here, okay? And you're going to take all your robot, any attachments. This stuff can actually be shoved out of the way. So if you've got any attachments that the kids are using, they can put them all in here. They can stack them any way they want. Remembering that your mission model number 1, that white piece, that is equipment that has to fit in this space as well. And you want to make sure that you'll show a ruler or a measuring stick that's 12 inches high. So you want to be able to show the referee that everything can fit in that small inspection area and that it is smaller than that 12 inches. You can actually use your hands to hold things in here. This guy likes to fall over. So the kids can use their hands to show that. So this is a small inspection area. If you do fit in there, that's a 25-point bonus. If they don't fit in there, they can fit in the large inspection area, and that is this space from here over. Okay, so that's either the large area or the small area for the inspection area. The inspection area does have that ceiling, that 12-inch ceiling. That's a big deal. People are seeing the removal of the ceiling for the launch area, but for inspection, there is that 12-inch ceiling, so make sure the kids are following that. If it fits in that large space, you pass and you can run. If it fits in the small space, you pass and you receive that mission point bonus. If it doesn't fit in the large space, you got to break things down or send things off to the pit area, okay? Which is probably the table behind you, but that's what we're calling it. After inspection, this inspection area, so the ref says, yep, you passed, and then you can spread out in this home area as much as you want, okay? So no, this is no longer an inspection. You don't have to stay in this small space the whole time. After you've passed inspection, you can spread out into this entire home area. If you compete with equipment that fails inspection or breaks some rule number 1, equipment, which is where we talked about officially licensed Lego parts, your score for that match will not count. Okay, so that's important to know. And then we're going to go to rule number 10, which is completely in. Completely in means, I'm going to grab my yucky robot here. Not a yucky robot, it's just a robot. Completely in means it has to be completely in the space, whatever the scoring space is. Like this guy here, he has wires sticking out. He is not completely in. Can you see him there? Even here when he's getting ready for launch, he's got these wires sticking out the backside. So that is not completely in. All parts of your robot, even cables, need to be completely in. There's a couple missions, and we will talk about when they have to be completely in. The line that defines the space is part of that area. So it's not the inside of the line, it's the outside of that line. So that is part of your in, completely in or out. In is, it's a volume, it's a space. Okay, so completely in is included up here as well. So some missions it has to be in, other missions say it has to be touching the mat. So be careful, and I will point those out as we go. When, let's see, that is when we come back into home. All right. And number 11, we're talking about field checks. Between inspection and your first launch only, the kids can calibrate their sensor anywhere they like. They are going to ask the referee to check any field setups. Again, that is in our live world. In remote, it is your responsibility to be checking to make sure those mission models are set and reset appropriately. If you launch that robot, ready, set, go, and the robot starts going, and you're like, oh no, we forgot to reset that mission model, you cannot reset that mission model in the middle of your run, okay? So this is really, really going to be the kids' responsibility to make sure the field checks are correct. And again, that is something our refs are going to do they're going to do their best job to say, are your mission models set? Is everything ready for you? And make sure the kids have given them the thumbs up and say, yes, we're ready. But you can't go, oops, we forgot to turn that tire over. If it's not set at the beginning of the model, you're not going to be able to go back. And again, we're going to learn a lot in that first practice round with our technology check as well about those. Cheryl.
How long is the referee session when they run their live runs, when they run their 3 times? Are we still
31 minutes.
31 minutes. All right.
It's
We're
30 to
specific.
40.
It takes about 30 to 40 minutes. It'll certainly depend on how many of the things the kids are trying to do. If they've only got a couple missions, then it might not take as long. But we're anticipating a little intro with the referees to talk, and then the kids will run, obviously do inspection. They'll run, do their robot run. Again, we don't touch anything. The ref and the kids will go through it, score it. We'll reset, we'll run again, score it, reset, run again. So we think it'll take about that long.
And can you confirm again that the live robot runs are run before the tournament day? It's the week of.
Correct, they will be run. So if your tournament is on a Saturday, you will be running either Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. We're going to give you lots of opportunities prior. Is it Wednesday?
Yes.
And you will sign up for them, and we will send out information with details on that. That's, I know you're used to hearing.
Signing up for a time block on a particular day.
Yep. So you'll sign up for a time block on a particular day, and then we will schedule that. We're not going to force you to do it on Sunday if that's not when you're, like I said, we're giving you quite a few options of that week. And we're hoping that that'll work for everybody. And that will be, again, I'll do that shameless plug. We need referees who are willing to do this. So the more referees we have that are willing, that gives us more time slot opportunities. So shameless plug. We're all learning this as we go. Anything else? All right, we're going to go on to rule number 12, where we are talking about home. Home. So again, if you're new this year, yay, this is probably easier because you don't have to unlearn what you learned last year, and last year you had to unlearn what you knew the year before. So this year, this home is this imaginary space, and I think, Norm, on my slide, it actually shows what home looks like. Thank you. So home is that entire yellow area. So it is the black space that has the large and small inspection area, which no longer is inspection area after you've passed. It becomes home. And then home also includes that arch, with the first Lego League logo in the middle of it. So you've got a bigger area for home this year, and home is where you can handle and store things. You can prepare your robot in home. After launch, the robot needs to become completely into home if you want to handle it, and the robot can only leave home from the launch area. We'll talk about launch area in a second. But the robot can return anywhere into home. So now we'll kind of look at home here. So your robot can come back into, and where you gonna, yep, please. So when your robot's coming back, it can come back into this launch area, which is now home, and I can touch it and interact with it and get it ready to go on its next round. I'm going to use this other robot. Okay. I can interact with it, comes in, and I can be ready to go again. Last year, it had to come all the way into this area. This year, this area is part of home. But it does not have to come into here. It can come into home up here or even up there. Okay, so you have actually home is a lot bigger for your robot to come in and out of this year. And then, but home is defined by these borders. Okay, so you cannot have a big part of your robot sticking off the side when it's coming back into home. Okay, this part is not in home. So it has to be in home. Remember, we talked about completely in. Okay, so off to the sides is fine when you're out doing stuff out there. But when you're coming back into home and you want to touch that robot, you want to make sure that all its parts are completely in that home boundary, which is here and all the way over there. And again, so if you're coming in here and something's sticking off the front of that robot, that's no longer in home there. So you want to make sure you're stopping it there to take care of it. The robot can leave home only from the launch area. So this area right here is your launch area, okay? So your robot does not leave from here. Ready, set, go. It goes from here, okay? Do not interact with things outside of home except for the rule. So if I've got a pointer, something like this, I cannot do something like this where I reach my robot out. Is that going to touch? Good. And then pull it back into home. Okay, so I can't reach out here and do an aimer or something like that. You have to stay completely in that home area. Now, if something accidentally falls out there, just go ahead and grab it and bring it back in there. Again, if something comes out of home accidentally, grab it quickly so that it doesn't upset the field. If equipment breaks off the robot unintentionally, so say we've got this part here, we're driving out, it falls off accidentally, then you can kind of grab that and bring that back in. Again, you cannot strategically extend anything out here. That's kind of when I was talking about that pointer to make sure that that's going to touch. So you can't strategically put that out there. Any questions on home? All right. And then rule 13. Norm, 13. Do I not have a 13? No, it's not. It's Vicky. Oh, okay. And actually, I think I had a second 12. Robot can leave home only with things from the launch area. I talked about that. Don't interact. And then number 13. Sorry, I got a little things out of here. 13, this is our launch area. That is that pink area that you're seeing. It's kind of that arc area. Launch has no ceiling this year. It does not include that white band. Vicki likes to call that just advertising. So Rockwell, Lego Education, Lego Foundation, and the first symbols, those are not part of launch. It is that black line. It's a gridded part. Launch is part of home with a special purpose, they say, but only when launching. Some of these rules. For every launch, the robot and everything about to move needs to be fit completely in that launch area, okay? Right after in between launch areas, launch becomes part of home. Robot needs to be completely in home, cannot hang outside those borders. We talked about those cables sticking out the backside. You want to make sure everything you have is inside. If you touch a robot when it's not completely in home, or that, you know, the launch partners we're heading out here in home, you will lose a precision token. Okay. And then number 14, rule 14 is launching. Launch, to launch something, you want to show that referee 2 checks. They call them check 1 and 2, and then you're going to press that button, signal a sensor, something that's going to send your robot autonomously out on its way. The first thing you want to check is that the robot and everything it's about to move fits completely in the launch area. I'm going to put this big piece on the front of this robot. Has to fit completely within there. And you can't be holding anything from moving. So if you've got something that has stored energy or you've kind of torqued energy on it, you cannot be holding that with your hands. Okay, the robot has to kind of be free and ready to go. Cheryl.
We have a question. If equipment falls off the robot unintentionally and you retrieve it, are you saying the kids will not lose a precision token? Can they continue to use the piece?
Yeah, so it says very specifically, that's one of the exceptions under Rule 12 for home. If equipment breaks off the robot unintentionally, you can pick it up as needed. You cannot strategically send or send anything out except by launching the robot, but if something accidentally falls off, you can grab that. Now, if you leave something out there purposefully, we'll talk about that later, that they cannot grab, but if something falls off the robot, or the arm breaks, they can go ahead and grab that as long as they're not interfering. And that is something that, especially in this remote world, might be a little bit hard for the refs to see. So it might be something that the kids say, oh my gosh, that arm broke off. Is it okay for us to grab that? And you know, the more they can talk with those referees, the better that's going to be. Okay. Make sure you're not holding anything for moving. The match will start. Again, you want to make sure you get that thumbs up from the ref, whoever's doing your timing. This is kind of fun where Vicky says, let's make this fun. 3, 2, 1, Lego. That may be something you'll discuss with your ref. Does the ref want to do the countdown? Does your person with the timer want to do the countdown? 3, 2, 1, Lego. That's for your first launch. Any other launches are when that robot comes back in, maybe you've changed out a mission attachment and said it's ready to go. You're going to want to make sure that that ref sees that you've got your checks 1 and 2. The robot has everything completely into launch and ready to go. Cheryl.
We've got a question from Dean Jensen. It's kind of fun seeing the coaches'
Yep.
names there.
Hi,
Hi, Dean. Is it in the rules to launch the robot from launch, drive through home inspection areas, and return to the mat to complete a mission, i.e. drive around the bench to get to the basketball hoop?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and actually that is, I feel like that's specifically. Let me find it for you. If a robot returns home and you do not interrupt it, it is free to interact with things you might have placed there, and it's free to leave from anywhere in home without a launch. So I read that as, yeah, it could drive through there. Now, you want to make sure nothing's in its way. But yeah, I would say yes, you can go into there. That's the blue writing under Rule 15, interruption, which we're not there yet, but we're about to get to Rule 15. But good question. And again, this is something that we're going to kind of learn as we go along, how this is going to work with our referees and how we're going to go. Rule 15 is interruption. When you interact with the robot that's been launched or any object touching it, you can interrupt the robot anytime, anytime, that's my typo, for any reason, but be sure to study Rule 16 and 19. This is kind of a weird thing that I was kind of having to wrap my head around. The best time to interrupt the robot is when it's completely in home. When a robot comes into home, they call that, and you touch it, they call that an interruption. That's an okay interruption, not a bad interruption. It's you're stopping the robot and you're going to start the next mission that it's going to run. So that's what they're calling interruption. Yeah.
Is that only before launching the robot? Once you launch the robot, and if attachment falls off once, it's out on a mission. I'm assuming a precision token would be taken. Is that correct? Do you lose a? Back
to the question of taking tokens by.
No, if something accidentally falls off, the kids can grab that. If the robot is out there driving around and the kids are like, oh, the arm fell off, and they grab that robot out there and bring it back, that's going to lose a precision token because you're touching that robot. But it's like, oh, my arm fell off because I had a bad connection, or the kids can grab that and take that. And there's something called stranding that we'll talk about as well. So interruption, again, so you want to interrupt that robot when it's coming back into home, if it's completely in. We talked about the completely in and out. You do not want to use exact or perfect timing on an interruption, as in your eyes are doing the work of a sensor. So if the kids are pushing something, maybe they're trying to do the walk here, they can't grab it right when it touches the blue and get those points. That is kind of using your eyes using a sensor, and that is not going to work, and you're actually going to get 0 points on that. And again, if the robot leaves home and you don't interrupt it, it can returns home and you don't interrupt it, it can go through and come back out. Rule 16 is your interruption procedure. If you interrupt the robot, stop it and carry it home. If it's not there, they used to say do that calmly, but I think they realized that that never happens calmly. So if you interrupt your robot and it's completely in home, that's no problem. That's fine. If you interrupt your robot when it is out on the field, and Vicki, I'll have you show this. So the robot's driving out here. It's going to knock something off the slide. Oh, it's crashed into that. If I grab that and bring that back into home, that's an interruption, okay? So anytime that robot's out there doing something and the kids pick it up and bring it back, that is an interruption, okay? If they touch it when it's all the way in home here, they're fine. And again, they should be watching, make sure it's all the way in, and then they can touch it. And a lot of times our refs are going to be saying, don't touch that until it's all the way in. They're going to try and help the kids as best they can. Okay, there are 3 levels of exceptions to that interruption procedure. I'll let you read those on your own. If you interrupt the robot after lunch,
You said after lunch.
did I?
Yeah.
Sorry. That's a good time to touch the robot, I guess. If you interrupt the robot soon after lunch, how many times am I going to do that? And it has not left the launch area, so the kids hit go, the robot's going, oh no, it's going the wrong way. If they grab it here and it's still in this launch area, that is not a loss of precision token because the robot has not left the launch area. They do have to take it back here and restart it. They can't just go, ooh, 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 fix it and let it go. They can't do that. But if it has not left that launch area, and this launch area feels really big, they just take it back and start it over, okay? If the robot is outside of home and it's running against something and it's straining the motors and you're not gonna launch again, you only have 4 seconds left, you can say to the ref, we're gonna turn that off so it doesn't burn out its motors. Then they can go ahead and turn it off, leave that robot where it is, because remember everything is scored at the end. Anytime you're gonna do that, it's a good idea to tell the refs, can we touch that? If we were in person, the refs would generally say, do you want me to stop that robot for you? And they would stop it. At the end of the match, if you're done running all your missions and we've got 30 seconds left on the clock, you can say to the ref, we're done. Is it okay if we turn off our robot? Okay, then you'll, again, turn over there, turn that robot off, stop it, leave that robot there so we can go ahead and do the table, okay? I would be careful with that one if your team is doing the dance, which is one of the missions that we'll talk about hopefully here soon. If they're doing that dance, you want them dancing at the end of the match. So obviously you don't want to turn it off before it's done dancing, okay? So a few more rules. Rule number 17, cargo, something that's being kept. So cargo is something that I'm pushing out. Like this is my, what is this? This is my project model. If I'm pushing that out, that's cargo, okay? Cargo, if I'm bringing something back, maybe we've knocked this down the slide and my robot has captured that and I'm running over his head and bringing that back, that's cargo, okay? Interruption with cargo. If I'm pushing this cargo out, I wish I had a better pusher. If I'm pushing this out, the robot's pushing that out, okay? And it is completely or partly outside of home, and I interrupt it, maybe that's going, something's going crazy. If it started in home with me, I can take that back and my piece of cargo back, okay? And I can try that again. If it's something that I gathered out here, so maybe I knocked this guy off the slide and I'm bringing him back. And for some reason I'm like, oh, I'm going to interrupt and grab my robot. That piece of cargo goes away. And it's not going to score those extra points for you. Okay, so cargo, the interruption rule number 18 is important. If the robot had it when it launched, you can keep it. If it's something that they're bringing from here back home and you interrupt, they're going to lose that cargo. Stranded cargo. If cargo is stranded outside of home, if it's completely outside there, it stays that it is, as it is, okay? This is kind of a weird one. If I've got cargo, I'm going to do one of these health units. If I'm pushing this out and cargo is partly in and out of home. I have to take it in with me, but I lose a precision token, okay? Same thing with any equipment that I was pushing out and it gets abandoned partway in and out of home. I have to move it and I lose a precision token, okay?
Can you use that again?
I can use that again, yep. If I'm pushing something out and my robot is no longer touching it, and I grab my robot or my robot comes back in home, that stays there. The olden days, we called that live in your mess. So that is stranded cargo and that will stay there. The rule specifically is if it's partly in home and out of home is kind of the big rule where you have to take it back in, okay? And that is loss of a precision token. Rule 20, interference. You cannot interfere with an opposing robot. No problems this year. We don't have that problem. Maybe that state, who knows. Field damage. If the robot separates the dual lock or breaks a mission model, the field stays as it is, as Vicki calls it, we live in our mess. And if the mission clearly made possible or easier to score because you did that, it's not going to count. So if you purposefully knock that slide over to knock those guys off, we're not going to let you do that. Well, you might get away with it once, but if that's a strategy, that is not a good strategy. Cheryl.
Craig Polly's got a great question. May the kids be touching a jig, which is in the launch area when the robot is about to launch? Would this be considered holding something from moving?
They are not allowed to touch that jig if it is in the launch area, okay? But there's a weird rule at the end, and Craig, you're an experienced coach, you've been around. If you look at the new to the rules this year, which is at the end here, we're going to get there in a sec, it says, I'm kind of excited about this, a jig can extend to the west wall. So a jig is maybe something that they would be using to line up. Your jig can reach from that far west wall to here, and your robot can line up against it there. That's fine this year. Last year you had to move it or do all sorts of things, but they specifically say a jig can extend to that west wall for you, okay? So if that jig is completely in launch, no, the kids can't hold on to that jig. Use that far wall to your advantage this year.
What did you make your jig out of, Jeannie?
Jigs can be made only from officially licensed Lego bricks parts. Duplos are. All right. Where am I, Norm? Field damage. Yeah, so you can't knock things off there purposefully. A few more rules. End of match scoring. Missions are scored at the end of the match unless a specific method is required. This year, going underneath the bridge, the chin-up bar, that happens during the match. Otherwise, everything else is scored at the end of the match. If the robot scores something and then unscores it, too bad, so sad. It's what happens at the end of the match. Again, we talked about you'll go around and show the missions, each of them at the end of the match. Rule 23, direct wording. Robot game text means exactly and only what it says. Do not read things into it. That's why I always say read the rules word for word. Don't say, this is what I think it means. Let the kids read the rules word for word. If a word is not defined, and yay, this year they got rid of a bunch of weird definitions they had last year, use it in its common conversational meaning. If a detail is not mentioned, it does not matter. So if it doesn't say you can't, it kind of means you can. Rule 24, information ranking. This is kind of how are things laid out. And among all the robot game information sources, the most recent game updates are the most important. Those are going to roll over overall. We've only got 4 of them so far. I think they actually did a really good job with the missions written this year, so they're pretty good. Followed by the missions, the competition rules, and then the field setup. You can have robot game updates well, we have them on our website. Videos, emails, forum posts. What you hear on the internet is not valid. I like to say keep the kids off of YouTube because there's a lot of things out there that look really cool, but they aren't actually following the rules. So read the rules and information ranking that those updates are the most up to date. Rule 25, benefit doubt, I think it's going to be huge this year. We're not trying to catch the kids. If the refs can't figure it out, they're going to try and give the kids the benefit of the doubt. Final results, Vicki talked about this. This year, you're actually going to be scoring with the referees, and you'll talk about the score, and hopefully they'll agree on the score. And once they hit enter, that is your score. So make sure that the kids have an idea, roughly, of what their score should be. Okay? And the next one, oh, and only your best scores count. Okay? Major rules have changed. That inspection area has a height of 12 inches. Launch has no height. And again, as I just talked about, jigs can extend to that west wall. That rule about combining things with mission models back and is based on time. The launch height is removed. We get a warning here. Do not abuse this by making tall, dead gravity hammers instead of thoughtful designs, or the ceiling will be back next year. That is, you can hear Scott Evans' voice in that. And then I think that's it for the rules. I'd like to get to the missions if we can. Cheryl, are there any questions?
We do have some questions on the step counter and the Bacchia.
Yep.
Those. So when we get to those, make sure.
Yep. Let's get to those. All right, Vicki, you ready? Here we go. We're gonna do missions. All right. So mission. Sure.
We're gonna do a little housekeeping here.
All right. So mission 00. That is not mission move. It's actually mission 00. That is the equipment inspection. And again, I kind of showed that at the beginning, everything fitting into that small inspection space, the small inspection space. There's that imaginary line. I don't picture a line right there. Everything, all your equipment, including your innovation project, has to fit in that area. If it fits in there, 25 points. Okay? And then I'll just pause kind of a little bit each time. All right, mission 1, the innovation project. I'm talking about these mission 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the order they're in. That's the way they printed them. You do not have to do them in that order. You can do mission 7 if you want. You can do mission 6, you know, whatever, and you do not have to do all the missions. You can try as many as you want, but you don't have to do them all. You can combine missions, so you can do this mission and another mission at the same time. That's a great thing for the kids to think about. How many things are going out to the same particular area? That's a good way to combine some of those missions. Mission 1 is your innovation project. Innovation projects, these are bag number 8, has a whole bunch of white pieces. Your innovation project, this is to represent your project somewhat. It doesn't matter if it's an exact representation or not. It just has to have at least 2 white Lego pieces. This one has 4. It has to be at least as long as 4 Lego studs. If any part of this is touching either the replay logo, which is out here, okay, that is worth 20 points, or touching the gray area surrounding the bench, okay? There it's upside down, that's fine, it doesn't matter. It does not have to be completely in that gray area. It does say specifically has to be touching the logo or the gray area. That means it does have to be touching the mat. It can't have anything underneath it, okay? So it has to be touching the mat, all right? You are gonna bring that with you. You are not gonna build that at the time. Please, we don't have time for that. The kids should bring that with them when they show up for their match. And again, that has to fit in there. Step counter, the big one. The robot slides a step counter slow and steady. If the bottom of the pointer is on magenta, that's 10 points. And if you're watching that, it's a slow and steady. Okay, if you push it too fast, it's intended to lock up. Okay. Let me pull that back. If it's pointing at the yellow, that is 15 points. If it's pointing at the blue, that's 20. And they actually, in that picture, they show you benefit of the doubt, because that pointer is like right on the edge, and they're going to say benefit of the doubt, and they're going to call that more points. Okay, so 10, 15, or 20 for that. We have questions on there, Cheryl?
So that's the step counter, right?
Yep, step counter.
Okay, someone said we have had problems with the step counter not seeming to be repeatable. I understand to push it slow, but how it is working seems to change over time as we run it and is dependent on how tightly we push the parts together. Anyone else experiencing the same thing? And,
I would expect that to be happening.
okay.
It's meant to be a little bit finicky. It's pretty close to the launch area, so it is kind of one that I think teams are going to go for. It's pretty fussy. I think particularly if you're pushing kind of on that green, you're almost pushing in that way. You're having a little bit better success. I think pushing here is a little bit harder. And I think your mission models are going to change. You guys are pretty lucky. You're using the same one. If it's super finicky, I would look at the build on it. Make sure nothing's come apart. Okay.
And the second question is the gray area around the bench just the half circle or any gray around the bench?
All of this area that's gray around the bench. Yeah, we kind of focus on this area because it's a nice big area, but over here is the gray area. Right up here is gray area. Okay, back here. So any part of that is gray area. The big part of that is it does have to be touching the mat. Okay, all right. Mission number 3, the slide. The robot slides the people down again. We're talking about the robot doing the work. And again, I'm pushing my robot around, but we're going to pretend he's driving. So if that robot knocks him off, one figure off the slide, that's 5 points. The other slide figure starts way down here. So if somehow the robot brings him up and knocks him or her down, both figures off the slide is 20 points. It is not 25. It's not 5 plus 20. 1 off is 5 points. 2 off is 20 points. If the slide figure is completely in home, I bring him back here. That's 10 points. It's 10 points max. Again, it's not 10 points for each guy. It's a total of 10 points. If that slide figure is held completely off the mat by the heavy tire, that's the big black one over here, and it's touching nothing else. So you can't have any equipment around it. You can't have it in a box or anything. It has to be off the mat, touching the black tire. That is 20 points max. So 2 guys on there is not 40 points. It's 20 for 1, 20 for 2. What? A guy here and a guy here. This guy's 10, that guy's 20. Not easy, because you also got to get that second guy off the slide.
Did you
But
say touching the tire or completely off the mat on the tire?
the slide, he has to be held completely off the mat by the heavy tire and is touching nothing else. So he cannot be just tipped up against that tire. He's got to be completely off the mat. His head can't be hanging off the side doing a headstand. I don't think he even reaches. Okay. All right, mission 4, the bench. The robot. If the bench is down flat, I'm going to move my project out of there. If the bench is down flat, okay, that's 10 points. If the bench is down flat and there are cubes, so you start with all these cubes in base, 8, 11 cubes. If these cubes, I'll take a couple different colors. And again, this is a robot doing this. There are cubes touching the mat in these hopscotch spots. It's 10 points for each space. There's 4 spaces. So that can be a total of 40. That one doesn't count because you only get 10 points for each space. Okay. They have to be touching the mat. That means something can't be in there. It's not in this way. It actually says it has to be touching the mat. Okay? If the backrest is completely out, we got a flying robot. Oh, that's not completely out. Okay, that is 15 points. It has to be out of both of those holes on that backrest. Okay? That one's pretty, parts of that I think are pretty doable. It's not a bad mission. Cheryl, any questions? That was the bench, mission 4. All right, Vicki, I'm going to go to basketball over here. I'm bringing my robot with. I love this mission. I think it's cool. Basketball, the robot raises the crate up the post. So you have these cubes that start in home. If the robot puts a cube in the hoop, okay, that's 15 points. Only 1 cube can score in the crate. You can put as many as you want. My robot over? Sure.
There you go. Okay.
Okay. I can put as many as I want in there. I might want to try to dump 3 in just to make sure 1 gets in there. But only 1 cube will score in the crate. So 15 points. And then there's 2 levels here. Okay. So if the robot, again, the robot is lifting this up, it moves it up to the first, that middle, and the height, the weight is on the white stopper. That's 15 points in the middle. If they go to that top one, that's 25 points. Okay. So if they've got a cube in there and they're up here, that is 15 plus 25. This does come off. So that's a tricky one if you go too high, because now you've got nothing. Because even though you got to that high level and you had a cube in, it's scored at the end of the match. So you're not going to get those points for the cube having been in there. So going for that high one is a lot of points, but there's a risk to it. Cheryl, any questions on that one? All right. And there is the video that First put out. I think it's actually a really good video, and I think that they learned their lesson with blocks and cubes last year, so they're not doing that. Mission 6, the pull-up bar. Your robot passes completely under the bar at any time during the match. Okay. It can pass through northwards, or it can pass through backwards. It doesn't have to go either way. That is something that's a little bit unusual because that is obviously not scored at the end of the match. So it's something that I definitely would say to the ref, hey, we're going to drive under the pull-up bar. And hey, we're going to do it now. So you make sure that that ref sees that. You're not going to be able to probably move your camera around for it. Your camera will probably be stationary, but just make sure that the refs know about it so that they can see that it's going to happen. Okay? If the robot is able to hang from this pull-up bar, somehow, that's impressive. End of the match, it's got to stay up there all by itself. That's 30 points. If you have the old dual lock, there is no way the bad dual lock is going to support a robot hanging from that. Okay? So if you want to do that, make sure you've got the new dual lock on it. Okay? That will be at the end of the match that you're going to show that. So if your robot needs to be on to continue to hold that up, you are not going to want to turn that robot off. So you want to make sure you're timing that correctly. Okay? All right. Mission 7 is the robot dance. I actually think this one's really fun too. If your robot controller, remember the controller is the brick, is at least partly over the dance floor in a dancing motion. Okay, your robot's, oh, I'm dancing too. If your robot is dancing, moving in a circle, dancing is interpretive. So how does your robot dance? Can it shake its attachments? I think people can dance that way.
Can you point out the dance floor?
The dance floor, whoops, are these 9 squares here. And then they did, this is in one of the updates, they added what does it mean to have been on the dance floor. Pretty much if the controller is, kind of getting even on a corner there, they're going to say yes. If your robot didn't even come close to getting to that dance floor, if I'm dancing over here and I'm clearly not on there, they're not going to score it. But if I've crossed through there or I'm on that edge, you're going to get the points for that. And that's at the end of the match. That's 20 points. So again, if you cannot just hit stop. If that robot is not dancing at the end, we want to make sure the robot's dancing on the end. That's where those points are. Okay? Nothing. All righty. Boccia. We looked it up. We've gone through the spelling. Cheryl, I know we've got some questions on this one.
Yes. So the question is, both teams agreed to push red cube into the other team's frame. My team pushed red cube into the other team's frame successfully. Then the other team pushed blue cube into my team's frame, or didn't even push the cube. Does my team gain 25 color match points?
That is actually in one of the updates. So update number 1 is mission 8 sharing adjustment. Because of the remote events, you don't have anyone on the other side. So if exactly 1 cube is sent north over the wall from your boccia share model, so the boccia has 2 parts. This is the boccia share, this red and this blue. If you send one over your north wall, okay, we're going to assume that you talk to your teammate, your person across the table who doesn't exist. We're going to assume that that happened. And if you sent one over, you will get the share credit. So you will get the points for that. And that is 25 points. So that's under update number 1. If you send both over, you do not get the share points because you had to agree to one or the other color. So it doesn't matter if you send blue or red, but if you send both of them over, that is not the shared mission. So you can only send one over. And again, it's just going to fall off the edge of your table, but that is fine, but yes.
Okay.
So update 1 specifically says that. And that's why we are always watching those updates. And then the second part of boccia is the frame and the target. So if there are cubes completely in your frame or target, whoops. So I've got all these cubes that start in home with me. I bring those out here and my robot dumps them, and that one missed, into the frame. That is 5 points for each cube. So I don't know if you can see that, Vicki. So I brought 4 out, 3 went in the frame, 1 fell out, I missed. So I get 5 points for each one that's in there. I've got another one here. I push that, my robot launches that yellow one. If that yellow is in here, that's 5 points. If that yellow gets completely in the target is kind of this smaller half octagon. Bigger, more than that. If the yellow goes all the way in here, okay, that's 10 points added, okay? So that would be 4 cubes in there, and I've got at least 1 yellow cube in the center, okay? That's 10 points added. Over here, there's blue stuff. If there's equipment, even partly in the frame, M8 scores 0 for you. So if I had something on the front of my robot, maybe a slide that was dumping down there, and I leave that here, I cannot leave equipment in this frame, okay? I will not get the points. If, like most teams, you have only 1 practice table, that cube sent over the north wall is going to fall on the floor. And then they have scoring examples. If you don't understand those scoring examples, you can always give me a holler, but it's pretty easy to figure out. I think the thing that people are missing is making sure that yellow one is starting, and then this boccia guide is lined up here. So it does kind of have to be turned to align it and then send it down. Okay. So make sure you're paying attention to the alignment when you're setting up.
I've got
Cheryl.
a question, Jeannie, from
Yep.
Christine Simonson. For the bocce target, can pieces just be dumped into the area using any method?
Yes, it does not say, there is no prescribed method on how those cubes get there. Okay. This yellow one does start here. Probably the easiest way is to turn that and launch it, but kids are clever and cool and can figure out different ways. But yeah, so it can be any way the robot can deliver them. I would love to see them thrown from home, from launch. I know that's the first thing my team would say. Can we throw them? And I'd say, show me that you can and we'll try it. And it's at your house anyway, so I don't have to. My refs don't have to pick them up. All right, mission number 9, tire flip. I gotta switch with you because I can't reach that far. All right, tire flips. If the light, which is the blue treaded tire, is white center up, that's 10 points. So it starts with the green. There's 2 circles here for you where they get lined up. So if that, again, this is my robot doing this, not my hand. Robot flips that over and it's white, center up, it's 15 points. If the heavy or the black tire is white, center up, that's 15 points. The heavy tire can never cross this red line. So I cannot scoop up this tire and bring it back to launch and then flip it over and send it back. Okay, this big heavy black tire can never cross this red line. That red line goes all the way across. Even though it doesn't go there, it is there. If the white center up tires are completely in this large target circle, completely in, 5 points for each. That one is not completely in, has to be all the way. Remember, completely in is the rule. For all scores, the tires need to be resting only on the mat. Okay, that means I cannot have a container that I have put these in, flipped them over, and then had them in a container. It does say specifically they have to be resting only on the mat. Okay? Cheryl.
Question, can a yellow cube be delivered from home to the bocce frame, or must it be launched from the bocce aim for the additional 10 points?
There are 2 yellow cubes. One starts on the launcher and one starts in home. So it just says a yellow cube. It doesn't say it has to be the yellow cube that's on the launcher. You can certainly take one from home and put it out there.
The second question is, could the heavy tire cross the line to bring it closer to the slide? No flipping points?
You can move it, but no, you're not going to get flipping points. Okay, that heavy tire cannot cross the heavy line. If it crosses the heavy line at any time, even partly, it scores 0. Okay, and now keep in mind, if you're wanting to put that slide guy on there, you know, I put him on there when it was green, and then I flipped him over, and now because he's not there to the end of the match, I don't have the points for that guy sitting on the tire. So that's part of strategy to make sure that the kids are understanding that. The only thing that's giving us points this year that doesn't have to be shown at the end of the match is that drive under the pull-up bar. Okay, so make sure the kids are thinking, if they're going to go through the work to bring this guy all the way out here, make sure they flip that tire. Okay, mission 10, cell phone. The robot flips the cell phone white side up. Again, this is the robot doing it, not my hand. If the cell phone is white side up and resting only on the mat, 15 points. Very clear, it has to be on the mat, so you can't have something underneath it. Okay? Any questions on that one? Yes. Doesn't say you cannot. I love that story. All right, treadmill, that one's over here, Vicki. Oh, question.
If the large tire crosses the red line, can you still get points for putting the minifig onto the tire? And that's from Paul Keeney. Hey, Paul.
Paul, I would say yes. It's the heavy tire crossing the red line. The tire flip scores 0. But my interpretation is those are 2 different missions. The mission with the slide guy, that's on 3, is the slide figure is held completely off the map by the heavy tire and is touching nothing else. You're not going to get the tire flip points, but you would get the other points. All right, treadmill, the robot. Oops, Cheryl.
We just had a comment, sometimes this is, the cell phone can be flipped anywhere on the map, so bring it home, flip it in home and deliver it to the field, perhaps?
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
Read the rules. Does it say you cannot? And again, remember that goes back to reading the rules. If the rules don't say you cannot bring it back to home, and if you think that's the easiest way to do it, or the kids are like, hey, can we do that? I say do it. It does have to be touching the mat and resting on only the mat. So I would not leave that in home. I would make sure that was in the launch area. Just saying. Not that I said anything, but what I'm saying. Mission 11, the treadmill, the robot spins the rollers. So the pointer turns to red, gray. It is kind of a one-way deal. It does say specifically that the robot spins the rollers. You cannot come over here, and I don't know if you can see this, Vicky. You cannot come over here and your robot just grab this thing and crank it. Okay? Yep. Okay. So the robot can't do that. It does say specifically the robot spins the rollers, so the pointer changes to the gray, red, orange. If the position is not clear, imagine a needle at the end of the pointer. The edge of the color counts as that color. So right there, oh, that's pretty close. I'm going to spin that a little bit. There. So you're kind of pricking a needle, pointing a needle. If the robot moves the pointer by touching the pointer, 0 points. That's very specific in the blue writing there. Okay? And that's when probably that ref, you're going to need to bring your camera in, your cell phone or whatever.
Hard.
Yep, however you're showing that to make sure that the ref can see that.
Sorry.
All right. Vicki just made everyone in the office sick doing that, and probably you guys out there too. Mission 12, row machine. And this is a good one. I'm going to point this one out again. Remember they said practice with those precision tokens in this corner. If your team is trying to do this mission and they've got some crazy contraption, make sure that they know that these precision tokens are going to be here during their matches. And our refs are going to ask for them to be placed there. So if they've been practicing how to maybe hang something over here and spin it, don't count on that space being there. All right, mission 12, the row machine. The robot, yeah, my robot is moving the freewheel out. If the freewheel, this is the freewheel, is completely outside of the large circle, that's 15 points. If that freewheel is completely in the small circle, that's another 15 points for a total of 30 points. If your mission model is not staying up, it shouldn't be rolling back like that. It should stay out like that. It should stay out. There should be enough friction there. What I've been hearing is people are missing in their mission build, they've got one of the pulleys not set up right. It should stay out there, okay? So that is 15, and then completely, that is completely in. So partly in is not, you're not going to get those extra 15 points there because that is not completely in that circle. All right. Mission 13, the weight machine. That is over here. Thank you. This is one of the exceptions to the rules. We talked about the rule where you can't touch any mission models before the match usually. This is one that you will, the kids will actually set it. They will set the position that they want to go for before the match starts. So they can't come running out here once that robot has already started moving. So they have to do this beforehand. So if they want it to be in the yellow, they're going to move this, the green part here, into the yellow. If they want to go for the purple or magenta, it's that one. If they want to go for the blue, it's way up there. That's harder to do. So then the stopper is on top. The lever setting, the color is under the east face of the east green bar. So it's this part here is determining which color you're going for, okay? So that's clearly blue. This is magenta, all right? The lever is lifted, and that stopper goes underneath there, okay? So that was a magenta score. Yep.
We have a question. If we bring the cell phone to launch area, then can we use the hand to flip it and then launch it back to the mat position? Can you use your hand at?
You can manipulate things in home, yes.
Okay.
And that is a good strategy. But don't tell the kids that. Let them figure that out. Okay. All right. And then mission 14 is health unit. So around the mat here, we have 1, 2, 3. We have 5 health units that are scattered about. It does matter which way they're facing. There's little, the little Lego nubs. There's one here. There's one at the end of the slow walk. There's one hidden here. This is probably the one that is getting lost the most and probably won't be picked up very often, okay? So you can gather those health units. You also start with 3 health units. These are the green ones. They start in the home area, okay? So health units are either touching either the replay logo. Again, my robot's driving these out. Bump, bump, bump. Touching the replay logo, 5 points each. So this one would be kind of tricky because it does say specifically touching. So I would say that one's touching. This one is not touching. I don't know if you can see that. That's a, so kind of be careful. The loops are part of it. Okay, so that one is not touching. It's in, but it's not touching. So that this guy would not count. These 2 would count 5 points each. Or they can be touching the gray area over here. Okay, and it just says touching. It does not say have to be completely in. So parts can be sticking out. But it does say touching. So that means it cannot have something else in between it. Or your other option is it can be looped over a pull-up bar post, a maximum of 4. This one is pretty specific, maximum 4 and touching no equipment. So I can't put something in here and hang that, and that piece of equipment is still holding on to those, okay? And then I've got the other ones that I can gather up. So there's a total of 8 of those units. So 5 points for touching either the replay logo or the gray area, and then 10 points for each one, up to 4, 40 points max, hanging on the pull-up bar.
Jeannie, we've got some questions.
Sure.
Christine Simonson said, is it okay if the health units also are touching the innovation model, which is equipment?
Not if they're hanging, which you wouldn't want it there anyway, but yes, over there, it can be touching because it can be touching either the replay logo or gray area, but it does not say there that it can't be touching equipment. The touching the equipment is looped over the pull-up bar and touching no equipment. So there's 2 kind of line items there.
And Christine also says, it does say that the robot flips the phone in the rule.
It says, remember when we talked about the instructions?
Like rule rules?
When we go back to, when it talks about what the rules are. Purple text includes or summarizes rule context for faster understanding when helpful. It is not used for scoring. And that is in the purple text. Oh, actually, that's in the black text. Ooh, Christine, did you catch me?
Oh, my money's on Christine. Christine gets a point.
So the black is, I was looking at that as purple because all the other ones have purple above it. All right, make your robot flip it in launch. Huh, that's a good one. I was reading that different. But again, the cell phone is white side up and resting only on the mat. All right.
You have more questions?
No. Oh, rats, it's 9:18. Sorry, I went over people.
Are we?
You're not done yet.
I'm not done yet.
No.
What do I have left? Oh, precision, sorry, precision.
I read this if the robot does it too.
We have the norm issue, so.
Yep.
But I would say certainly you can bring it back into launch and figure out a way for the robot to flip it there. It does not have to be flipped out there. We can say that. Mission 15 precision, the number of precision tokens left on the field is, if there's 1 left, 5 points, up to 6 left is 60 points. The less often you interrupt that robot outside, the more points you're going to keep. And again, practice with those precision tokens in place. If you have more questions, please email Vicki at hightechkids.org.
We do have another good question from
Yes.
Craig. Did you say that the loops on the health units do not count if only they and at the body of the mission model are touching the replay logo in mission 14?
No, the loops are part of the mission model. So very specifically, they talk about the model parts. I gotta figure out where it was. But yes, loops are part of the mission model. And actually, if you look at the scoring, one of the scoring that they show, the middle scoring picture that they show under health units number 14 has just a loop sticking in like that and a loop sticking in like this. And they score that 10 points, so that's 5 points each. So if you look specifically at that picture, the middle picture, they're showing that just a loop is in that gray area. So yes, the loop is part of the mission model, which is why you can't take a loop off a mission model to if you wanted to do something weird with them. Cheryl, any more? All right, so then just to wrap up, we want to thank you. We've got more than 21 years partnering with Lego and Lego Education. We're here to help you with all of this. Please contact us via email or phone. And the best way to stay up to date is to make sure you subscribe to our FLL Challenge replay newsletter. This is our main forum of communication. If you're on Facebook or Twitter, follow us there. We are recording this and we'll get it up on the website soon.
What is the best email to send questions? Jeannie.
Yeah, I would say send them to me, Jeannie at hightechkids.org. And then if there's one that we can't figure out, now Christine, I am actually going to post your question about the cell phone because Vicki and I kind of are not in agreement on that. So I will send that to first, and then we will share that out. But you can also always ask first. They have a robot game specific email. I believe it's robot game, FLL robot game at firstinspires.org. I'm not sure if that's, I think that's it.
I think we've got one last question from Craig. The referees will give generous benefit of the doubt with regard to whether or not the loop is actually touching the mat.
I'm sure they will.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, the refs are always trying to give kids the points if they can. that we don't have any refs that I can think of that are ever going to say, ah, ha, ha. No, they're trying to. And especially in this remote world. Now, I would not make it a practice where you're twisting those up, because it does say in there that you want to make sure those loops are trying to be straight if possible. We know they get a little bent up, but. All right, that's it. All right, I think that's it. And again, we thank you so much and good night.